Mr. Horrible is here to make you quake with fear, to make the whole world kneel.
Neil. Nice. Hi, my name is neilpatrickharris, and I am going to be revisiting some scenes from my career. Shall we?
You know, when I was a little kid, I was sick too. I was real sick.
What was wrong with you?
I had a disease called acute leukemia. I got it first when I was 4 and then had it again when I was 6.
That was from the pilot of Doogie Howser MD, the first episode we ever made. I remember it so vividly because it was a big chapter in my life. It was a big moment of suddenly I'm doing a television show. Stephen Bochco was a big deal. He had done LA Law, he had done a show called Hill Street Blues, and that scene was one of my audition scenes. So not only do I remember that scene, but I remember rehearsing that singular scene and doing it in audition rooms. So I remember the rigors of it. I was only allowed to work 8.5 hours a day, and then 3 hours had to be school. So I remember having to be very compartmentalized in my life at a very young age. I also am amazed at my hair. It's kind of not dissimilar today. So throwback, OG.
When am I gonna get my new heart?
It's hard to say. Could be today, or tomorrow, or next week. Depends on when they get one.
There's a confidence to my pacing in this scene. I think I was directed to slow it down a bit, right? I'm talking to a boy who's probably going to pass away and is needing a heart transplant, and so it needed to be a quiet, calm scene. In fact, I think later on in this episode, he had died. So this was kind of the last scene of us together. In contemporary television, there would be a lot more shots and edits, and it would be faster paced. So I kind of love how staid and still it all was, and like sitting on a performance.
Where did I get it from?
The truth. From a kid who dies.
I'm scared.
Don't be. Getting a new heart's gonna be so prime.
I was pretty good back at that little age, doing some subtle acting. My nuts hadn't dropped, so my voice is really high. But I think it would have been more awkward if you'd have watched that and I was talking like this. It's okay, Billy. When you get a heart, it's gonna be so prime. Didn't it say prime? Was that one? Was that a thing you said back then? I don't know.
Is it a hitchhiker?
What the hell?
Should we pick him up?
And get shot?
Oh, ha!
You know what? We're lost.
I know this scene well.
You're not picking up a hitchhiker, man!
Hey guys, thanks for picking me up.
Oh. Excuse me, are you Neil Patrick Harris?
Yep.
John and Hayden, who wrote Harold and Kumar trilogy, they were fans of Doogie Howser maybe back in the day, and so they wrote me in it, and I think in their minds, they didn't think that I would ever want to do their movie. And then a friend of mine was auditioning for a role in the movie and said, I'm gonna be in this movie that you're doing. And I had no idea what he was talking about. And he said, you're in this movie, Harold and Kumar Get the Munchies, I think it was called at the time. I said, well, that makes no sense, because I'd love to be in a movie. And I'm in this movie? He said, yeah, dude. And so then I panicked, because I thought I was gonna be just the butt of a joke in a movie. I was conflicted. I called my agent. They sent me the script. I read the script, and it was funny. I met with them, they were super cool, and I said I'd happily do their movie. I put a rider in my contract that they couldn't do any comedy about me without me approving it. I'm pretty protective of the Doogie Howser canon, and I stand by the content of that show, so I didn't want Harold and Kumar to make it seem like I was disrespectful of my past.
Dude, Doogie Howser MD was like my favorite show growing up. You were my idol.
Yeah, that's great. Can we get going? I'm bored as shit back here.
Go.
Let's go. It's a freaking boring spot.
And look at that, 3 days work, and my whole career took a nice pivot.
So I gotta ask you, Neil, did you ever get it on with Wando off the set?
Dude, I humped every piece of ass ever on that show.
Even the chick who played the hot nurse?
No. I didn't go all the way with her.
Neil, you wouldn't happen to know how to get on the highway from here, would you?
Dude, I don't even know where the fuck I am right now. I was at this party earlier tonight and some guy hooked me up with this incredible X, and next thing I know I'm being thrown out of a moving car. I've been tripping balls ever since.
I'm amazed when I watch it how I had clearly done ecstasy before. Not a lot, but I had a couple times. Because I'm doing a sort of jaw clenchy, like close one eye. I don't know even how I did that. That's weird. Anyway, it worked for the scene. I think we were just filming it in a black curtain space. And they were exhausted. John and Cal, they'd been filming this movie working nights. And then in comes Neil Harris shooting guns with his fingers. Then I sit down and they were exhausted and I just wanted to make them laugh. So like when I leaned in and said, "Lap dance," that was to try and get John to laugh. Because when you can make John Cho laugh, you feel special and happy inside.
Yeah, dude, you fascinate me. Forget White Castle, let's go get some pussy.
Huh?
It's a fucking sausage fest in here, bros. Let's get us some poontang, then we'll go to White Castle.
No, Neil, you don't understand. We've been craving these burgers all night.
Yeah, I've been craving burgers too. Fur burgers.
Harold and Kumar, for some weird reason, was kind of a career-altering professional move for me. And it wasn't something that was intentional. I think that people had seen me and thought that I was Doogie Howser from TV. I didn't really have any baggage with that. As I said before, I'm proud of it. But I think people assumed that because I played him, that I would be sensitive to it. But then by doing Harold and Kumar and talking about it, being meta about it, it really seemed to clear the air as far as my past and allowed people to see me embracing a new direction of myself.
Are you all right?
Hold on.
It's okay. Captain Hammer will save us.
Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog. I think one of the very first scripted internet shows. Musical, directed by and created by Joss Whedon. It was released in 3 different parts, 3 acts, 3 subsequent weeks on iTunes, because there was no real streaming services at that time. And I still think, just as a piece of art, it is one of the best things I've ever done. It's one of 2 things I go back and watch when I'm sad and feeling worthless. I'll watch Dr. Horrible, and it's just really, really good.
Here lies everything, the world I wanted at my feet. My victory's complete, so hail to the King. Arise and sing.
Yeah, Billy is someone who's desperate to be noticed. In this world, there's heroes and there's villains, and then there's henchmen and sidekicks. And so he thinks he can be, because he's mad at all of the people who are bullying him, he'll just become a supervillain. But in order to become the villain he wants to be, the person that he loves has to die. When you hear that, the chorus of girls, they're singing, "Everything you ever," which is like everything he ever wanted. This is what happens. This is what happens. You get what you want, and now you're empty. And they let me do stuff with Billy. I played him with like a tic, like twitchy, because he had a bunch of scenes that Joss had wonderfully written where he kept wanting to say the right thing, but then messing up, and so it felt like a long blink. For me, it was kind of like a reset, like, no, don't say that, say that instead. The nice thing about having an annoying tic is that you can find a time when it goes away. And so I think the cold reality of who he is now makes it all go away. Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog was filmed and created because a writer's strike had happened. And so everything shut down. But Joss wanted to make content anyway. He wrote this thing singularly, and we made it during the writer's strike. I think we barely got paid. It wasn't about that, right? It was about doing something kick-ass for Joss. It was just very bare bones, and it was just crazy. We filmed some of those shots where someone was holding a stereo, playing the track, while someone else was just holding a camera while I was walking, doing a single shot. And that was like the one time we did it, and that's the one shot we used. It was kind of weird artistic perfection.
Now Dr. Horrible is here to make you quake with fear, to make the whole world kneel.
Neil. Nice.
And I won't feel a thing.
The last shot of it is really interesting, and I think it's intentionally vague and sort of up for interpretation. Are you flashing back to what he's hopeful for? Are you flashing forward to like who he is when he's not Dr. Horrible and recognizing, or is he just a sad visage of someone who started out without dark circles under his eyes and who's nice blogging, you know, and then in turn he's just kind of dark and dead. So I'm not quite sure, to be honest, what one's interpretation of that might be. For me, it was just like it takes the wind out of your lungs to think, oh, wow, that's the price of internet success.
You have to choose right now, me or the suits.
I know what you're thinking, what's Barney been drinking? That girl was smoking hot.
That was my favorite episode, of How I Met Your Mother, episode 100, called Girls vs. Suits. We wanted to do something very exciting for the 100th episode. I think was the end of the 4th season of the show. And it was just the joy. It was just a joy. I wanted to fill in every little bit. So even just like that second shot, walking down and then holding my hand up and having the lint brush stick into your hand. Like we had to do that 11 times because I'm not looking at the hand. I'm not looking at where it's being thrown. I'm just holding my hand out. And so, you know, you'd be cocky, confident, singing it, and then you go like this and it would go, and you'd miss it. We filmed that at 20th Century Fox. It had a big proper backlot back in the day. It was really just 2 streets. Pam Fryman, who directed that and was our boss, she wanted to shoot every element of it. So if you look at that, you can see just shot for shot, they just used every section. Who are musicians as well as writers, wrote the song. They were in a band before they became writers. And so we incorporated music as much as possible in the show. They pitch you the ideas about a month before, you know, and say, we've got this idea in the writer's room that we're thinking about doing, and what do you think about this? And I was a big, fat yes. How I Met Your Mother season 4 was just still kind of an on-the-bubble show. Every year we were not sure if we were gonna get picked up. You'd kind of wait and see. But at season 4, that means you're about 100 episodes. That means you get to be in syndication. So if you can get 4 seasons, at least back then they would want to do season 5 and season 6 because it's going to be on in reruns all over the place, so then they're going to want to bank more shows. So you knew that you were on the road to something good if you got to season 4, and we were still sort of in an up trajectory. It was celebratory in more than one way. Before, that is a fun fact, is that this is a CBS network show. I asked them to reverse one set of the lyrics. And so at the beginning of that big number, when I say, come on, Lily, get your head out of your ass. 2, 3, 4, and it goes dun 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 dun. It was girls will come and girls will go, but there's only one absolute. And I thought because it would be dirtier, that we reversed that. So instead I sing, girls will go and girls will come, but there's only one absolute. And it was very sexual. I don't think they ever knew that that was intentional. So we got to say on CBS that girls will come, which bonus.
I'm sorry, Suits, let's make amends. My Sunday best are my best friends.
The hardest part of that was probably the big final scene with everyone dancing. I jump up on the top of a taxi. I don't think I was supposed to spin because it's not a lot of real estate, and if I miss that spin, no one's gonna catch me except the concrete. I did the spin anyway, and then we all had to come forward in great choreography with tons of people in suits. It was a hot day, and we all had to do kick lines together, and some of the cast was struggling more with all of the specifics of the choreography more than others. Jason Segel. And so that was sort of fun to watch. We'd have to do that multiple times because people would understand it, but it was all happening very quickly. Sequence is filmed well and it goes correctly. I think you're sort of overwhelmed by the timings of everything. Things just happen when they're supposed to, and people just enter all at the same time, and the doors close on the beat, right? And that's you expected because you're listening to like a tempo, a rhythm. But in point of fact, that's really hard to execute. So when you watch things like that, there's so many little tiny things that could hiccup and go wrong. But when it's done well, then it feels like a big musical number.
Then again, she is pretty hot. Go slowly.
But I want it.
This was from Gone Girl, David Fincher. He's meticulous. Multiple takes of every single shot. And that was thrilling for me because it didn't feel like the performance was given short shrift. And if you can literally break it down shot for shot and see the symmetry of everything, it was just as gross and as nasty as it gets. It still, to me, feels very Hitchcockian and artistic. This scene was a challenge to film in kind of a handful of ways. We had to make it look like it was an actual sex scene, meaning that it wasn't robotic. David Fincher wanted us to be doing everything exactly the same way every single take, so that when we flopped down on the bed, he wanted to make sure we flopped down on the bed at pretty much the exact same position every time. Not 3 o'clock on the dial and then 12 o'clock on the dial, but exactly 2 o'clock on the dial. So that when he's editing it, he has multiple options. Because if we do a great take and we're here, but then we're over here in another one, I can understand the logic behind it. And normally that's not a problem. In a sex scene situation, it's weird because you want to have the freedom to be fooling around a bit. So well before we shot this scene, Rosamund Pike and I went into this set with no crew around, and David told us what he wanted us to do. We sort of talked through it, and then he went somewhere else, and we just rehearsed it for like 2-3 hours, over and over and over again. He wanted this number of these, and this number of mouth thrusts, and this, like everything was the same every single time we did it. And that was freaky and hard and a challenge, but kind of exciting. Also a challenge to die on camera and have it feel very realistic. And he was very intent on what that would actually be like. And it's hard to manifest that performance because I've never died. Oh! like, I don't know how you get your throat slit. And so I watched a bunch of videos of like animals who's got their throat slit, and we sort of talked about it, and I think the timing of it is kind of genius because I get my throat slit mid-orgasm, and it was very helpful in its own way because I was mid-climax, which allows me to be in kind of aroused state of, oh, right? And then when that happens, apparently, says people, you don't feel anything when your throat is slit. There's no pain with a knife like that. It was just a clean slice. So anything, it would be almost more erotic because you just feel a lot of warmth. And it would be only when you noticed a different color. Like, he knew none of this was gonna happen, right? He was in love with her. So then all of a sudden he's looking down. So if anything, the death is more, what the fuck is happening? While ejaculating, while she then like forces her on top of him. It's a garish scene, but that was crazy. We had to do that a few times. We shot everything up until the blood stuff, the wet work, probably 30-ish times. That room was a set. All of the walls pulled back. There were multiple bedding sets. There were multiple rugs. There were multiple outfits. There was a tube that went up to a fairly overt prosthetic piece that was on my neck that they could digitally remove. And so then we would take it right from there, and it would start, and we would just carry it through, and then as soon as we were done with it, we would pause, and then everything would move back, and we'd stand up, and they'd like completely redo the set while we went showered, and then covered ourselves with shaving cream to keep ourselves from getting stained. And then we'd get set, get in position, get ready, and we'd do it again. It was wild. Also, point of fact, that's not my dong. There's one shot you can see where I'm flipped over, post-coital, and she hops off of me, and you see like a floppy dong. That wasn't my real dong. That's a digital dong that David Fincher told me about right before we went to the premiere of it in New York. He said, oh, by the way, your dong is in it. It's not your dong, it's a digital dong. I didn't know that could happen. Nice? And he said, yeah, it's good. It's a good dong.
This is who Colin left me for.
Oh, he's cute. How old is he?
He's not cute. He's diabolical. And that blonde hair looks like a dye job.
I wonder how I would look with blonde hair. I feel like it would really pop on screen.
So, how did you find out?
Suzanne, she saw them together moving into Colin's new apartment.
So that's a scene from Uncoupled, my new Netflix show. I play Michael, a guy who's in a nice, monogamous 17-year relationship with his partner, Colin. On the 50th birthday party, Colin announces right before he opens the door that he's moved out and that he's left him. Gut punch, door open, surprise! And that's kind of the show, is my character at 48 years old having to navigate a breakup in New York City where he didn't know what happened. He has to figure out what happened. Should he reconcile? Should he start dating again? What's dating like in a grindery world?
What kind of friend tells you these things?
What, was she gonna not tell me? She saw them.
Wait, is that the hot guy you hate from work? I think I follow him.
Then unfollow him.
This is from our company's Christmas party. I introduced them.
That's cold, having an affair with someone from work.
Not an affair. He left me for Tyler, then didn't have the balls to admit it. This scene is fun because it's a Darren Star show. Darren Star and Jeffrey Richmond did it. Darren's famous for lots of things. Recently, Emily in Paris, before that, Younger, before that, Sex and the City. And this is sort of the more Sex and the City type scene of the show, where you're seeing three friends together kind of having lovely conversation about stuff.
Company has a table at the Central Park Conservancy dinner tomorrow night. Tyler is gonna be there. I'm afraid I might stick a steak knife in his neck.
That's a nice butch fantasy. But what you should do is just play it cool until it fizzles out.
Really? You really don't think it's over? So looking at my career, I'm playing lots of weird versions of myself. And there's other stuff that you haven't seen. There was a series of unfortunate events where I played Count Olaf with lots of prosthetic makeup. There was Hedwig and the Angry Inch, where I'm a transgendered punk rock singer from East Berlin. So I've done a lot of transformational acting, but it was only recently with this that I thought it would be fun to play a version of myself that was a little closer to home. I'm in an 18-year relationship. Michael was in a 17-year relationship. I never imagined breaking up or getting broken up with because we've been together so long, but I had to actually play out this version of life. And that's a crappy feeling. So I felt very naked and exposed. Also, I have a lot of sex scenes with hot dudes in the show, so I was naked and exposed in more than one way.
The point is, it was a fling. He got it out of his system, and now they're back together.
Thanks, that does give me some hope.
Okay, this is starting to sound like a cautionary tale. Please, do not have a baby with Colin. We'll have nobody left to go to dinner with.
Exactly. And we're too old to find a new friend.
Sometimes it's harder when you're playing someone so similar to yourself. Sometimes it's harder to know if you're being super specific to the character or if you're really just playing what you would feel as a person. So sometimes I would question whether I was acting like how Neil would be in the situation because it's so similar, or whether I was acting the way Michael would be in a similar situation. So in a way, playing someone similar to myself was more challenging. But I also would say that playing comedy is more challenging than playing drama. Drama is simpler in some ways, and people can add their own interpretation to things. Comedy's tricky. You want to make people laugh, but you want them to laugh as opposed to tell them to laugh. So I find that the most challenging of all. That's it. Thanks for watching.
Last thing, what's your favorite scene you shot for Doctor Who?
The first one.